The very moment Earth's formidable warship arrived in the Zanari system, the entire galaxy collectively held its breath. For ages, the Galactic Union had casually dismissed humanity as an insignificant species, a backwater civilization from the Sol system barely clinging to a spot at the interstellar assembly. To them, humans were trivial, perhaps useful as hired guns, laborers, or merchants, but certainly not a genuine power, definitely not a threat. That perspective shattered when the colossal vessel made its entrance. This battleship was unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. It lacked the sleek grace of the Alvarez' elegant warships, nor did it possess the organic, fluid architecture of the Zith. No, this behemoth was a brute in its design, characterized by sharp angles, formidable plating, and weapon bristling from every inch of its hull. It exuded raw power, not finesse. And it wasn't alone. Flanking it were two smaller, equally menacing vessels, the Revenant and the Titan Fist, each more formidable than any warship the Union had ever encountered. Their arrival was a direct response to the horrific slaughter at Proxima Centauri. The Drath Collective, an insectoid civilization that dominated half the known galaxy, had committed a fatal error. They had obliterated a human colony, foolishly assuming Earth would submit, just as countless other races had before them. The Drath believed humanity would grovel for mercy. Instead, they got the behemoth. The Galactic Union's diplomats frantically sought answers, sending urgent messages to their allies, pleading with them to prepare for the inevitable. The Dreth, however, merely scoffed. To them, humans were nothing more than bothersome pests, a minor inconvenience. They marshaled their fleets, confident they could effortlessly swat away whatever Earth dared to unleash. And then, the behemoth unleashed its fury. The initial volley instantly vaporized the leading Drath battleship. Their shields, which had withstood centuries of warfare against lesser races, crumpled like discarded paper under the overwhelming force of human weaponry. The Union watched in utter disbelief as humanity showcased something no one had thought possible: true technological superiority. Plasma cannons, incinerated hulls, kinetic projectiles the size of city buses tore through enemy formations as if they were made of fragile glass, and railguns, propelling munitions at near light speed, decimated entire fleets before they could even react. The Drouth shrieked for reinforcements, dispatching hundreds of warships to halt the human onslaught. It was futile. Earth had been underestimated for ages. They had observed the galaxy, meticulously studied its technology, and meticulously catalogued its vulnerabilities. And when the time came, they didn't merely catch up. They surged past every major power in one brutal, terrifying display. The Galactic Union descended into chaos. If humanity could inflict such devastation upon the Drath, what could they do to the rest of them? Then came the final transmission from the behemoth, a stark, simple declaration broadcast to every world in the Union. Earth does not forget, does not forgive, stay out of our way. And just like that, the galaxy recoiled in terror. The shattered remnants of the Drath fleet still drifted through the void, glowing embers of ruined warships casting an eerie pall against the backdrop of the stars. The engagement had lasted less than an hour, but its repercussions would resonate for centuries. The Galactic Union's High Council, an assembly of the most influential species in the known cosmos, sat in stunned silence. The horrifying footage of the behemoth's relentless assault played repeatedly on a colossal holographic screen in the center of the Grand Chamber. Not a single one of them had anticipated this outcome. Ambassador Jar of the Elver, a towering, silver-skinned diplomat whose race had dominated galactic politics for millennia, was the first to break the silence. "We have miscalculated," he conceded, his customary composure replaced by a profound unease. "Humanity was not what we perceived them to be." The insectoid Cathri delegate nervously clicked its mandibles, chittering in agreement. They annihilated an entire battle group. The Droth had nearly 100 warships, and the humans, 3, interjected Grand Marshal Sorak of the Thales, his feline features taut with tension. They only required 3. A heavy hush descended upon the council. Humanity had never been taken seriously as a military force. Their fleets were presumed to be antiquated, feeble, barely capable of defending themselves. And yet, here they stood, triumphant atop the ruins of one of the galaxy's most formidable empires. But it wasn't merely their victory that petrified the council. It was their method of engagement. Other species had long since abandoned kinetic weaponry in favor of energy-based combat. The humans, however, had perfected both. Their vessels launched slugs of hyperdense metal at relativistic speeds, tearing through shields that should have been impenetrable. They didn't just cripple enemy ships. They obliterated them, reducing them to drifting debris in a matter of seconds. They did not come for negotiations. The Zith representative murmured, its gelatinous form quivering. They did not demand reparations. They did not even issue a formal declaration of war. No, Jar concurred grimly. They came for vengeance. At that very moment, a new transmission materialized. The Union's high command braced for a demand, perhaps a threat. What they received was a cold, precise declaration. "We will not seek conflict with the Union. we will not expand beyond our established borders. But if any of you so much as lay a hand on another human world, we will do to your fleets precisely what we did to the dragon. A weighty silence followed, then the feed abruptly terminated. The message was unequivocally clear. The humans weren't claiming territory, demanding tribute, or seeking allies. They had arrived to make a point, and they had done so with such undeniable finality that every government in the galaxy now whispered one terrifying thought. What if the humans decide they desire more? The Droth collective was utterly destroyed. Their homeworld, once a fortified planet teeming with their kind, now lay in an eerie silence. Not because humanity had ravaged it, no, the behemoth had left Wrath Prime untouched. But the message had been received, loud and clear. The Droth survivors had capitulated before humanity even reached their system. Their ruling council had scattered, fleeing to the farthest reaches of the galaxy. Their military, once a symbol of conquest and terror, had been reduced to wreckage drifting through the void. The few warships they had left refused to engage, some even defecting to other empires simply to evade the wrath of Earth's forces. But the galaxy's pervasive fear didn't stem solely from the Droth's annihilation. It was how the humans had accomplished it. Every species had heard the tales. Wars lasting decades, fleets clashing in protracted battles, entire campaigns waged over insignificant stretches of space. Yet, humans had dismantled an empire in a matter of hours. They hadn't fought a war, they had executed a sentence, and now, the question every ruler, every strategist, every admiral was asking was simple. What else were the humans concealing? The Galactic Union desperately scrambled to comprehend the full scope of Earth's military capabilities. They scoured their intelligence reports, dispatched spies, bribed traitors, even implored human diplomats for insight, but no answers came. And that, ironically, was what terrified them most. Because the humans hadn't even deployed their full fleet. The behemoth and its escorts were merely a fraction of Earth's true might. The actual fleet. No one knew its whereabouts, its numerical strength, or the armaments it carried. For the first time in history, the galaxy wasn't afraid of an empire attempting to conquer it. They were afraid of an empire that harbored no interest in conquest, an empire that only acted when provoked, but when it did, left utter devastation in its wake. The Alvari Confederation, once one of humanity's harshest critics, quietly recalled their patrols from human borders. The Cathri, who had once enslaved human prisoners of war, abruptly abolished all forced labor programs. And the Zith, who prided themselves on their neutrality, utterly refused to comment on the matter. Even the Galactic Union's governing body, usually so quick to impose sanctions and dictate the course of interstellar politics, remained eerily silent, because, deep down, they all knew the truth. If humanity ever genuinely decided to wage war, nothing in the galaxy could possibly stop them. The profound silence that followed humanity's display of power stretched across the stars. No species dared to provoke them, and for the first time in galactic history, a singular force had become untouchable. Even the most battle-hardened empires, those who had once scoffed at the notion of human supremacy, now whispered in hushed tones about the behemoth. But while the galaxy cowered, humanity was far from idle. Deep within the Sol system, Earth's true military command convened in a highly classified orbital station, cunningly concealed behind Jupiter's colossal shadow. Unlike the panic-stricken councils of the Galactic Union, the men and women seated around the war table were unsettlingly calm. They had anticipated this outcome. Admiral Jonathan Hayes, the mastermind behind humanity's modern war doctrine, leaned forward. His voice, though even, carried the immense weight of what had just transpired. The Union is afraid, he stated simply, his steel-gray eyes surveying the room. That was the objective. Around him sat the brilliant minds responsible for Earth's dominance. Generals, strategists, scientists. Not a single one of them was celebrating. There were no toasts, no triumphant boasts. Humanity had secured a battle, but their true war had only just commenced. A woman with sharp features and a data slate in her hand cleared her throat. The Droth are shattered. Their economy will collapse in a matter of months. Reports indicate that smaller factions are already carving up their remains. Hayes nodded. That was expected. The moment the Droth showed weakness, the vultures of the galaxy would descend upon them. It's how power operates out here. Another officer, a younger man with dark skin and a cybernetic eye, spoke next. The Union hasn't made a move against us, but we've intercepted transmissions between the Elver and the Zith. They're running simulations, testing out hypothetical conflicts with Earth. A faint smirk touched Hayes' face, and the officer hesitated, then exhaled. None of their models show them winning. A ripple of laughter, not of amusement but of grim understanding, passed through the room, the kind of shared humor among soldiers who comprehend a terrible truth. Hayes leaned back, lacing his fingers together. Then we proceed as planned. The woman across from him narrowed her eyes. You think they'll still test us? They always do, he said. Fear doesn't last forever. Eventually, someone will grow bold. They'll believe we got fortunate against the Droth, that we lack the numbers for a prolonged war, that they can unite against us. And when they do, Hayes' smirk vanished, his voice becoming cold, certain. We remind them why the galaxy should be afraid. The room fell silent. There was no bloodlust in their expressions, no cruelty in their words, but there was an unwavering certainty. The galaxy had made the mistake of underestimating humanity once. They would not be granted a second chance. The days following the Drath fleet's destruction sent seismic ripples throughout the galactic community. Every major empire, every ruling council, and every warlord in the known systems was left grappling with the same unsettling thought. What have we unleashed? For centuries, humanity had been treated as little more than an afterthought, a species confined to its small sector of space, scrambling for resources, barely keeping pace with the universe's great powers. They had been useful, certainly as mercenaries, traders, explorers, but no one had ever truly feared them, not until now. And yet, fear alone was not enough to keep the galaxy at bay indefinitely. Admiral Jonathan Hayes understood this better than anyone. Sitting in the command center of Earth's secretive Black Station, he watched as dozens of intelligence reports scrolled across his screen. The Galactic Union was rattled, but rattled did not equate to defeated. It meant they were thinking, it meant they were planning, and eventually, it meant they would act. The war against the Drath had not been a war. It had been an execution. But the next war, the one Hayes knew was inevitable. That one would be different. Sir, a voice interrupted his thoughts. Commander Elise Carter stood at attention, her expression grim. We've detected an increase in fleet movements along our borders. Hayes exhaled slowly. Which factions? The Alvari Confederation and the Zith Dominion are reinforcing their defensive lines. We've also intercepted a Union-wide transmission. Carter tapped on her holopad, and the message materialized before them, a grainy recording of High Chancellor Orland, one of the galaxy's most powerful political figures, flickered to life. The reptilian leader's voice was measured but heavy with tension. The events at Proxima Centauri have unveiled a terrifying truth. Humanity possesses weaponry beyond anything we were prepared for. Their fleet, once dismissed as primitive, is capable of annihilation on an unprecedented scale. We must not permit ourselves to be fractured by fear. We must stand united. We must discover a method to ensure that such a force is never again unleashed upon the galaxy. Hayes snorted. They're uniting against us. Carter nodded. It's only a matter of time before they attempt something. They're scared, Hayes said, but fear breeds desperation. They won't remain idle forever. They'll try to uncover our secrets, infiltrate our systems, perhaps even launch a preemptive strike. We're monitoring all possible incursions, Carter assured him. No ships have crossed into our space yet. Hayes stood, walking over to the massive viewport overlooking Jupiter's stormy expanse. Black Station wasn't visible to the naked eye. It was hidden deep within the planet's radiation belt, undetectable to any known sensor technology. It was the very heart of humanity's war machine, the clandestine site where their most dangerous projects were developed in utmost secrecy. What about our own movements? He asked. Carter hesitated. Fleet Command is holding the behemoth back at Titan Station, awaiting further orders. But, she glanced at him, sir, with respect, the Union won't stay defensive forever. They're forging alliances as we speak. If they come for us, they'll do it together. Hayes turned back to her, his expression unreadable. Then we'll need to make sure they never come for us. Carter frowned. Are you suggesting a first strike? No, Hayes said, not yet. But we need to demonstrate to them that fear is the correct response, that there is no victory against us. We don't start wars. Carter, he exhaled. We end them, before they even begin. Carter didn't respond immediately, but the weight of his words hung palpably between them. The galaxy was on edge, waiting to see if humanity would make another move, and that was precisely where Hayes wanted them. Begin deployment of Ghost Fleet Protocol, he ordered. Let's remind the galaxy that no matter where they hide, no matter how many alliances they forge. He turned back to the viewport, watching Jupiter's storms rage below. Humanity is always watching. The initial step of Earth's true war had commenced. The stars now belonged to humanity, but not in the way the Galactic Union had once claimed dominion over the galaxy, ruling through intricate treaties and sprawling trade agreements. No, humanity's rule was far more terrifying. It was silent, unchallenged, a looming presence over every empire, unseen yet undeniably felt, and Admiral Jonathan Hayes intended to maintain that status quo. Deep within Black Station, hidden beyond Jupiter's treacherous radiation storms, the command center hummed with a quiet, focused activity. Officers worked in purposeful silence, meticulously processing intelligence reports, monitoring subtle fleet movements, and ensuring that humanity's watchful eye never faltered. Commander Elise Carter approached Hayes with a grim expression. Sir, the Union has commenced mobilization. Surveillance drones have detected large-scale fleet exercises near Alvari space. Hayes barely reacted. How many ships? At least 300. She replied, mostly Alvari, but there are Zith warships among them. They're training together, simulating large-scale engagements. She hesitated before adding, their simulations focus on countering the behemoth. Hayes exhaled slowly. Predictable. It had been an inevitability. Fear was a potent motivator, but its grip only lasted so long. Eventually, paranoia would set in. The Union understood they couldn't permit humanity to exist as an unchecked power. They would strive to uncover weaknesses, develop countermeasures, and when they believed they were ready, they would strike. They would do precisely what Hayes had predicted. Any indication they're planning to move on us soon? He inquired. Carter shook her head. Not yet. Right now, they're just preparing. But the fact that the Alvarian Zith are collaborating, unprecedented. It means they're serious. Hayes stared at the holographic galactic map hovering before them, red markers highlighting known fleet movements. He could already visualize the pieces shifting into place. The Union desired a war. They just didn't realize they had already lost. He turned to Carter. Activate Ghost Fleet Protocol. I want silent incursions into their systems. No attacks, no engagements, just surveillance. We're going to know everything before they make their move. She nodded. I'll have the stealth ships deployed immediately. Hayes clasped his hands behind his back. And bring the behemoth to the Kepler defense line. No direct confrontations, but I want them to see it. Let them know it's waiting for them. Carter smirked. You want them to hesitate? I want them to understand, Hayes corrected. Before they even contemplate war, they need to feel the weight of what they're considering. He leaned in, his voice quiet but firm, because when we strike, it won't be a war. His eyes, cold as the void, met hers. It'll be an extinction. Across the galaxy, in the heart of the Alvari Confederation, High Chancellor Orlan sat in his private chamber, scrutinizing the latest intelligence reports with mounting unease. The footage displayed a solitary battleship, a human warship, silently, hovering along the border of Union space. The behemoth. It hadn't moved, it hadn't fired a single shot, but it was undeniably there, like a predator patiently observing its prey. Orlan turned to his military advisors. Tell me, he began carefully, do we possess any weapon capable of matching that ship? Silence. The assembled officers exchanged nervous glances, none willing to be the first to speak. Finally, a 10th admiral cleared his throat. No, he admitted, we don't. Orlan felt a chilling sensation trace down his spine. He had harbored hope for a different answer, hoped in vain, because no matter how extensively they trained, no matter how many ships they constructed, the truth remained. Humanity was already at war with them. The Union just hadn't realized it yet. The moment the behemoth materialized along the Kepler defense line, the Galactic Union froze. Messages flooded through encrypted channels, high-ranking officials whispered in darkened chambers, and military analysts frantically scrambled to discern its meaning. The battleship had not ventured into Union space. It had not fired a single shot. It simply existed, and yet that alone was sufficient to push the galaxy to the precipice of panic. In the Alvari High Council, Chancellor Orlan stood before a holographic display, his gaze fixed on the colossal warship hovering in the void. Even from millions of kilometers away, its presence was suffocating. An aide leaned in, his voice hushed with barely concealed terror. Sir, our forces remain on high alert. We've positioned 3 fleets along the sector border. But he hesitated. But what? Orlan snapped. The aide swallowed hard. We have no idea what's inside that ship. We don't even comprehend the full extent of human technology. That was the crux of the problem, wasn't it? Humanity had revealed only what they wished the galaxy to perceive. They had unleashed the behemoth against the Drath. Yes. But what if that was merely a diversion? What if their true weapons, their true warships, were hidden somewhere beyond the reaches of known space, patiently awaiting the opportune moment to strike? Orlan turned to his military advisors. Tell me, do we have some countermeasure? A Zith strategist clicked his mandibles. We've been conducting combat simulations against the behemoth. Every scenario concludes in catastrophic loss. The room fell into an oppressive silence. Orlan clenched his fists. He had been prepared for war, but not this kind of war. Not one where his people were already outmatched before the first shot was even fired. We cannot allow ourselves to be paralyzed by fear, he declared finally. The humans possess power, yes, but they do not rule us. If they believe they can intimidate the Union into submission, they are gravely mistaken. One of the Alvari generals stepped forward. Do you propose an attack, Chancellor? Orlan hesitated. That was the central question, wasn't it? Strike first, or await the inevitable? Either choice carried its own grim prognosis. No, he said at last. Not yet, but we will prepare. Across the galaxy, preparations for war commenced. Meanwhile, aboard the behemoth, they're coming, Commander Elise Carter announced, placing a datapad on the command table, displaying the latest movements of Union forces. A fleet of nearly 200 warships had begun mobilizing towards the Kepler defense line. Admiral Hayes studied the data in silence. They won't attack, he stated finally. Not yet. This is a test, Carter nodded. They want to see if we'll back down. A slow smirk touched Hayes' face. Then let's teach them what happens when you test humanity. He turned to his officers. Deploy Project Revenant. Let them see what they should truly be afraid of. Carter's eyes widened slightly. Are you certain? We haven't revealed it yet. Hayes' voice was calm. Certain. It's time. The Union needs to learn that the behemoth isn't the worst thing humanity has constructed. Hours later, at the Kepler defense line, the Union fleet arrived in formation. Weapons powered but not armed, an unmistakable display of force. And then they saw it, a new ship, larger than anything the galaxy had ever known. A monstrous abyssal black warship, its hull seemingly absorbing light like a void in space. It made the behemoth appear small. No records existed of its creation. No intelligence reports had ever mentioned its existence. It had never been observed before. The Union fleet, despite its formidable numbers, hesitated. And then, the ship spoke. "You are standing at the edge of your own destruction." The message resonated across all channels, cold and devoid of emotion. The Union fleet, once so confident in their display of force, found themselves staring into the unknown, and for the first time, they comprehended the truth. Humanity had never needed to fight them, because humanity had already won. The void of space had never felt so suffocating. The Union fleet, once assembled as a proud show of strength, now drifted in an eerie silence before the monstrous warship that had materialized before them. No records, no intelligence reports, no prior warnings. This was something entirely new, something the humans had chosen to unveil at this very moment. The ship bore no name on its hull, no insignia, no visible energy output, and yet its mere presence was overwhelmingly oppressive. "You are standing at the edge of your own destruction." The voice was synthetic, almost lifeless, yet it carried a weight that pressed itself into the minds of every Union officer. The message had been received loud and clear. Aboard the Union command ship, Eternal Vigilance, Admiral Veltra of the Alvari Confederation swallowed hard, his fingers hovering over the COM panel, but he hesitated. He had been a soldier for decades, had fought wars against ruthless enemies, yet in this moment, he felt like an insect staring into the jaws of a predator. "Orders, Admiral," one of his officers asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Veltra's mind raced. What was this thing before them? Another superweapon? A planet killer? The behemoth had already been terrifying, but this was something else entirely, and humanity had never once mentioned it. They had kept this hidden until now. Veltra cleared his throat, forcing himself to regain composure. "Open a channel." A brief chime confirmed the link. "This is Admiral Veltra of the Galactic Union. Identify yourself." Silence. Then the ship's voice returned, its synthetic tone cold and unfeeling. "Your name is irrelevant. Your rank is meaningless. Your fleet is insufficient." Veltra's blood ran cold. This wasn't negotiation. This wasn't diplomacy. This was a warning. And it wasn't just directed at him. It was meant for everyone in the Union. Veltra's instincts screamed at him to retreat, to take his fleet and flee. But he understood the consequences. If he backed down now, the Union would lose all credibility. Humanity had already demonstrated power beyond comprehension. But the moment the Union admitted defeat, they would become nothing more than vassals under Earth's shadow. He had no choice. "Hold position," Veltra ordered. "We are not here for war." Another moment of silence passed. Then the ship's voice returned. "Then you should leave." The command was not shouted. It was not accompanied by the charging of weapons or the movement of attack formations. It was simply stated as a fact, one that carried the weight of an unspoken threat. Veltra clenched his fists. He wanted to respond with defiance, to demand answers, to prove that the Union would not be cowed, but his sensors told a different story. There were no life signs aboard the warship, no heat signatures, no biological readings. This ship was not manned, which meant it was something else entirely, and the implications of that realization shook him to his core. Veltra's officers awaited his orders. Tension thick in the air. He could push forward, demand negotiations, perhaps even order a test strike to gauge the ship's defenses, but deep down, he already knew how that would end. He took a slow breath. "We fall back." A ripple of disbelief spread through the command deck, but no one voiced their objections. No one wanted to remain there. The fleet adjusted course. One by one, the ships turned away from the Kepler defense line, retreating without another word. Aboard the nameless human warship, Admiral Jonathan Hayes watched the Union forces disappear from the sensor display. He allowed himself a small, satisfied smirk. "Phase 1 is complete," Commander Elise Carter said. "They took the bait. They were never going to fight," Hayes said, folding his arms. "But now they know. Now they understand that the behemoth wasn't our greatest weapon." Carter nodded. "What do we do next?" Hayes turned his gaze back to the viewport, where the stars stretched infinitely before him. "Now," he murmured, "now we let them realize that they've already lost." Inside the Union's War Council, at Xerxes Prime, the atmosphere was suffocating. High Chancellor Orland sat at the head of the chamber, his expression unreadable as the footage from Veltra's fleet played on the central display. The warship had never fired, and yet the Union had retreated. "They didn't even fight us," one of the council members whispered. "They didn't need to," Orland exhaled sharply. "They're showing us the tip of the blade, making sure we see it before they decide to use it." The Union was at a crossroads. They could attempt diplomacy, but what bargaining power did they possess? They could attempt to rally their forces, But how did one prepare for war against an enemy that had already won before the first battle? Orlin clenched his jaw. He would not surrender. He would not allow humanity to dominate the galaxy unchecked. But every instinct in his body told him the same thing. The Union's fate was no longer in their hands. It was in theirs. The Galactic Union had existed for over 1,000 years. It had endured wars, economic collapses, rebellions, and external threats. It had bent, but it had never truly broken until now. Humanity had accomplished something no empire, no warlord, no species had ever achieved. They had shattered the Union's will without ever firing a second shot. Across the galaxy, fear took root in every major power. The Alvari, once proud and unshakable, began withdrawing their fleets from contested regions, unwilling to risk provoking humanity further. The Zith Dominion, renowned for its ruthless expansion, abruptly halted its military campaigns, its warlords uncertain whether humanity was observing them from the shadows. Trade routes collapsed, diplomats scrambled to salvage alliances that were already crumbling, and whispers of surrender spread through high councils. In the darkest corners of space, some even suggested the unthinkable, that the Union should submit to Earth before it was too late. And then, the final message arrived. It was not sent through official diplomatic channels. It was not delivered by an ambassador or through a subspace relay. It simply materialized on every planetary communication system, every military console, every leader's private terminal. The war was over before it began. You just didn't know it yet. Earth does not seek conquest. We do not need war. But if you ever lift a hand against us again, there will be nothing left of you. The Union's leaders, already crumbling under the weight of their own fear, understood what had to be done. One by one, the great empires of the galaxy quietly rescinded their war plans. Defensive fleets were recalled, skirmishes along human borders ceased, and the once proud Galactic Union, an alliance that had reigned for a millennium, was reduced to nothing more than fractured, obedient states. No treaty was ever signed, no formal surrender was ever issued, but the message was clear. Humanity did not rule the galaxy through brute force. They ruled through certainty. The certainty that if the Union ever dared to challenge them again, it would be the last mistake they ever made. As he watched the last of the Union's fleets withdraw from contested space, Admiral Jonathan Hayes allowed himself a rare moment of satisfaction. The war had never been about territory. It had never been about conquest. It had been about establishing a precedent. Humanity had been underestimated for too long. That era was now over. He turned to Commander Elise Carter. "It's done." Carter nodded, exhaling. "What happens now?" Hayes smiled faintly. "Now we watch and we wait, because there will always be someone who forgets the lesson humanity taught the galaxy today. And when they do, Earth will be there to remind them." If you enjoyed this cosmic tale of humanity's rise, make sure to hit that like button, leave a comment below to let me know your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel for more epic stories like this one.